You can get both in there. Fire gas detectors, again, we don't have, well, we do. We have carbon monoxide detectors in, I think, hopefully most of our homes. As you're working on your homescape plan, show of hands, how many people have a carbon monoxide alarm in their home? This is it? Yep. Ew. All right, so everyone who doesn't have their hand up, for Christmas, buy your family a carbon monoxide alarm and wrap it up, put a little note in there. Every home should have one of these. I love you, I care about you. That's all you gotta do. You don't have to put any more thought or planning. You buy it for mom and dad, and they're both gonna cry. You know, you care about us. No, it's just I couldn't come up with something to get you, so I got you that. No, I'm kidding, you should care. All right, so these detect products of combustion, gases, those types of things, if it's pertinent to your industry. So if there are confined spaces, if there are vapors, if we work at a place that does auto painting and things like that, then we're going to want to watch the vapor levels and things like that. So we're going to have that system. Other than that, it's expensive, it's costly, it's difficult to maintain, it's prone to false alarms, so you're not going to have it if you don't need it.
I know that you can't see carbon monoxide, so how are those detectors able to detect it if it's around?
Remember that practical day when we were working back there with the gas monitors?
Yes.
That is what they do. We have developed a way of sampling the air to figure out what is normal, 21% oxygen or 20.9% oxygen, and 79% nitrogen and 21% oxygen make up normal breathing air. And then we have trace amounts of other things, but it should be fairly detectable. But they give off a certain parts per million. Once it hits a certain amount, that means there's a problem. So it's like a smoke alarm. It's sitting there sniffing the air, sampling the air, and if it catches too much carbon monoxide or whatever gas it's looking for, it says, nope, that's the point where I make an alarm. So I send a signal or I alarm myself, just because I hit that threshold. Okay, so they do have gas detectors out there as well, and combination device. So again, let's put things together, let's cover our bases, let's not figure out which is the better one to have, photoelectric or ionization. Let's put both of them in one smoke alarm. It's going to cost a little more, so we don't appeal to the masses, we appeal to the intelligent consumer who wants to have minimum numbers of alarms but maximum protection from both devices. So you'll see that out there as well. All right, enough on the system side and the initiating and the alarm, okay? Switching to sprinkler systems. Okay, example, look up above, a red pipe running through here. See those things hanging down? Those are sprinkler heads. The red pipe itself has water in it. So this is part of a sprinkler system. It has sprinklers, the ones I pointed out. It has pipes. Here they're colored red. They do not have to be colored red. And it has a control valve and control valves. Control valves do different things. We have to just focus on several of those valves. But the system itself is fairly simple, but there's components to it. This was developed way back in the Industrial Revolution, 1700s-ish, where we came up with the sprinkler system. It's a very distant relative to where we're at right now, but you would kind of recognize it if they started pointing out parts and what they're supposed to do. So it has changed, but not so much so that it's unrecognizable. Bates.
What does that control valve do over there for the sprinkler?
What is what?
Oh. That control valve.
That is an inspector's test valve, which we will talk about in a little bit. So I'm sure it's listed, we'll get to it. So control valves. We have a main control valve, which is the main shut-off, the main on-off. Is it, do you think right now, if we went to the main shut-off, would it be open or would it be closed?
Open.
It would be open because this is an automatic fire suppression system, which means it does not require manual intervention of any kind. So unlike when you want to wash your car, where you have to turn the spigot, to get the water to come out. This is automatic. If a fire happens, water will come out. There's water behind that pipe. The only thing holding it back is those sprinkler heads. And once those sprinkler heads are released due to heat, a little bit more on that later, then that water will come out and wet the surrounding area, extinguishing the fire, pre-wetting surrounding combustibles, and controlling fires that might not be easy to get to. Like, I don't see anybody that's got like a backpack underneath a table, but if there was one underneath here, we might not be able to put that out with water coming from overhead. Okay, this acts like an umbrella to protect it. But it won't be able to control it because it's not going to set this on fire because this is all going to be wet, or this because that's going to be wet, or the carpeting because that's going to be wet. So it controls it. It makes it get no bigger than that. All right, and then main control valves have to be, anyone know where I'm headed with that one? We talked about it earlier in a couple of chapters. Indicating valves. Indicating means you can tell if they are open or closed by looking at them. There's nothing you need to do manually or physically. Looking at them will tell you. So then remember what the 4 are? 4 types of main control valves. Ashby?
Outside screw yoke.
OS and Y, outside screw and yoke, outside stem and yoke.
Post indicator valve.
Post indicator valve.
Wall post indicator valve. Post indicator valve assembly.
Very good. Post indicator valve assembly. Those are the 4 main types. We'll take a look at those here as well. But an automatic sprinkler system automatically discharges water to extinguish or prevent from spreading fires until we arrive. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, sprinkler arrangement and coverage. The hazard dictates the sprinkler system. Okay, so when we built this was going to be a classroom, always was. So for a classroom, this is considered a moderate hazard. Do we have any major stuff in here? Are we storing flammable liquids in here? Do we have high racks of files and paperwork and stuff like that here? No, none of that. So this is a moderate hazard. So this is the spacing for sprinkler heads in a moderate type of a building use. If we decide we're going to change and store flammable liquids in here and tires and make it kind of like a maintenance area with WD-40 and oil and gas oil mix and all of that, this is not the correct system to cover that hazard. That's now an extra hazard. So it needs closer spacing of the sprinkler heads. So sometimes when we look at buying a building, okay, so there's a closed one over here. Let's buy that and put our business in there. Oh, look, it's got a sprinkler system in it, which your realtor will tell you, oh, here's a selling point. It has a sprinkler system. But your realtor has no idea that that sprinkler system was designed for a moderate hazard, and you are moving in with a high hazard or an extra hazard. And it's not correct. You have to refit the system in order for it to work. So, design of the system. So there are rings for adequate distribution based on the hazard present. They can extend from exposed pipes, as they do here, or protrude through the ceiling or walls from hidden pipes, which hotels, motels, that's what you're going to see. Costco's and stuff like that, you're going to see this. In offices, you're going to see the drop ceilings, and you're going to see the little, ring, and then you're going to see the little sprinkler head in there. Try to keep it low profile. And there's more things they can do to conceal if they want to. We'll talk about those later as well. So, types of coverage. There's complete and there's partial. We really discourage partial coverage of sprinkler systems. Complete, if you're going to have a sprinkler system, have a complete system. Okay, so it's not in the codes, but in our ordinance in the city of Livonia. If you're going to build a building that is more than 3,000 square feet, 3,500 square feet, 4,000 square feet, there's a number, now it's bigger than that. You're going to have a sprinkler protection building, okay? So some people will say, okay, let's build our building just a little bit smaller than that code requirement so you don't have to put a sprinkler system in. Okay, well, if that's your intent, great, but you're more likely to have a costly fire repair if one happens to happen, whereas if you have a sprinkler system, the cost will be far greater. History proves this out. If you have, in Livonia, a building that's 4 stories or higher, it will be sprinkler protected. Okay, and so people say, okay, well, let's go with 3-story building to try to avoid sprinklers. Don't try to avoid sprinklers. Sprinklers have a wonderful track record of saving lives. Okay, so we, in this country, we kill 3,000 people per year in fires. But the fire death rate in sprinkler buildings is almost non-existent. So if we could get sprinklers in homes, we would have such a small death rate record in this country, it would be silly. Anyways, partial. Partial does not work, but that would be if someone said, oh, okay, so in my building, the hazardous material storage area is probably my biggest hazard. So I'm going to sprinkle that, but not the rest of the building. Okay. And the fire starts in the kitchen. Doggone it. Building burns down. Okay, once it hit that stuff, there's too much fire for that little bit of sprinkler, and it overwhelmed the system, and the building goes down. Well, I had sprinklers. You had a partial protection system. That never works. 1977, Kmart Distribution Center in Pennsylvania. They tried doing that. Distribution center. It wasn't a store. It was a big, you see the videos of that Home Depot fire back about a few weeks ago? It was that size. In fact, many similarities. They said, okay, we're going to put all our hazardous products, all our flammable liquids, our sprays, our underarm deodorant, our hairsprays, our gels, our flammable stuff is going to go in this section of the building, and we're going to sprinkle it. And then the rest of the stuff we don't need to sprinkle because that's going to be dry goods. It's going to be paper plates and paper towels and coolers and clothes and stuff like that. So no real hazard there. Until a fire started in the flammable liquid area, and anyone ever see what happens when an aerosol can heats up? Sometimes they explode and become projectiles. And it went from the sprinklered portion to the unsprinklered portion and burned the entire building down because they had partial sprinkler coverage. So it never works. But if it's by code, you can't do partial. You have to do the full thing. We don't allow for partials in most codes. Sprinkler system failures, general causes. People is the general cause. People doing stupid, so arsonists, they want to burn the building, so they're going to research how to shut it off, and they're going to shut it off. Or people doing dumb things, like, oh, I work at this facility, and there's this door that says fire sprinkler control room over here, and there's a fire going on in the employee cafeteria right now. I'm going to run over here, I'm going to open this strange door, and here's a big old wheel, which looks like a spigot to my house, only bigger. It doesn't go this way, I'm going to go this way. There it goes, and I'm going to turn it. And what did I just do? Shut the system off. They didn't mean to do that. They did that. They're thinking hero, raise, employee of the month parking spot, and they burnt the building down. So dumb stuff. Human error in a lot of cases. Or that person, and sometimes these renovations slip through the radar. People don't pull building permits for some things. So if we switch this from classroom to flammable liquid storage for tires and gas and oil and mixes and stuff like that, this becomes a higher hazard, not what this is designed for. But if we didn't pull a building permit, we're not going to know until a fire happens, and this can't put it out because it's not spaced enough. All right, so when the sprinkler head goes off, you see the thing you're staring at, the gear-shaped device? That is called the deflector. That is the last thing the water hits before it goes on the fire. Some look just like a gear, like the ones you are looking at, and some look a little bit more like an umbrella, because this sits on top of the branch line, so the water hits that and then comes back down. So it just kind of sends it 180 degrees. 4 feet below that deflector, that sprinkler will cover a circular area that has a diameter of 16 feet with water. Okay, so it's like an umbrella where everything underneath the umbrella gets wet. Okay, and there's going to be some overlap from this one to that one to that one. So when you look at this room, again, my cryptic drawing, Okay? We're going to cover almost all of the room by that. Okay? How about that little storage room over there? There's a sprinkler head in there. Okay, so we look at the building, we build the system to fit the building. It was done way back in the design phase. Okay, well, what does the ifs have to say? Partially closed main water control valves, so somebody shut the valve. Interruption to municipal water supply, so for some reason the water supply stops. Every once in a while there's a broken water main and the city shuts down your water for a period of a couple hours, right? Everyone's been through that once in your life? Okay, could happen. Damage to painted over sprinklers. Some people will paint over them, or they'll put tape over them, or they'll put a sticker over them, something like that. So, oh, they look, I don't like how they look, let's put something over them. So how can it do its job if it's protected by something? Some people drywall over them. Okay, that completely defeats the purpose. Frozen or broken pipes. Again, if this were designed as a cold storage room, this is where we are going to keep our ice cream and butter and milk. We eat a lot of ice cream here, so we need this whole room for cold storage. Well, what happens below 32 degrees? Code says 40. If it ever gets below 40, it's considered freezing temperatures, and you have to plan for that. So there's not water behind these pipes, there's air behind these pipes. There's water on the other side where it's heated. Okay, and then when this goes off, it opens up that valve, control valve, which allows water to fill the pipes and then come out. So it doesn't sit in a cold pipe, it only moves when it has a place to go. And freezing water, or moving water doesn't freeze. All right. Excessive debris and sediment in the pipes. So inside these pipes, which is why we have that, which we'll get to, rust happens, corrosion happens, stuff like that happens. That's why we have flow hydrants, which is why we're going to do that as well. Failure of a secondary water supply. So do we have a retention pond or something like that that's going to, or a water tower that's going to apply extra water in case we don't have enough municipal? Okay. Tampering and vandalism. So again, if I were an arsonist and I wanted to burn this building, I would shut off the main control valve. Okay, so that would not work. Objects that obstruct sprinklers. So if we open the FDC and your adrenaline is up to here and you go ahead and you put the line in and you open it up and there was a bird's nest in there, where do you think all that stuff's going to go? It's going to go in the system, it's going to work its way through the pipe, and these pipes get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and eventually it's going to start to lodge somewhere and it's going to obstruct. All right. Components. Okay, so back below here, this is the water supply. So if it's municipal, it comes up from underneath the ground into the building. You have a main control valve that is an... What type of valve? Indicating valve. You have an indicating valve that you can look at. All right, so other components in the system. It has a drain. So if this system goes off, it needs to be serviced. We need to get the water out. We need to change the sprinkler head, and we need to put it back in service. So even though you can't see to the naked eye, this all has a slope to it. Okay? So it's all going to go out the drain if we shut it off, shut the system off, and open the drain. It will all move out. Valves. Like,
it's always like turn it right, keep open, right?
Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So right usually closes, but again, there's always going to be, just like on the hydrant, there's always going to be an arrow with a word. Okay? This says wet pipe valve. They don't all have wet pipe valves. Some have dry pipe valves. Again, it depends on what we're doing with the system. They all do have alarms. Some sound only locally. Some sound at this agency where this person is sitting in this office, and some sound at the fire station, or dispatch center. There is a test connection, which is this. This is where we are going to test to see how quickly this system will set into an alarm if we activate it. So we're going to do a couple things here. Number one, this is very remote. In the far corner of the building, you know how a high school engine is? Okay, back over there, That's where the water comes into the building, and that's where the fire pump is. It's going to pump all the way through here.